right. There he is. Let's step into the Red Recover Huddle right here with Matt Verderame. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame and check out his exceptional work there at Fansided and the podcast also. He does every single week. Stacking the Box, correct? It is called Stacking the Box. Am I correct?
Stacking the Box.
That's it. We're stacking the box. I watched your boy. Man, I got to tell you, Tyreek is just, he's looking fantastic, man. Watching Tyreek, I went out to practice today for the first day and no pads, so it's not a big deal. But watching the receivers run around, that Tyreek Hill and Waddle combination, I was telling my friend this, Tyreek's never played with a receiver like this. He's played with a great tight end. Obviously, I'll play with a pretty good one here in Gesicki. He's not Kelsey, but he's pretty good. But he never really had a Waddle opposite of him. And I'm really interested to see how that combination helps each other out, right? Because the impressive thing last year, Matt, was Waddle was the only guy on offense. You knew he was getting the ball, and yet you couldn't stop him from getting 100+ balls, throughout the year. So to me, that's super impressive that it's a rookie. You knew he was getting the ball, and you still couldn't stop it with a bad offensive line and all that kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see the dynamics of those two. And obviously, you being a KC fan, you can elaborate a little bit on Tyreek having this kind of a buddy now on the field.
Well, I mean, look, they're going to have more speed than any defense knows what to do with. And that's kind of the idea of this. Now, you're right. I agree with you. I think probably the best receiver he ever played with in Kansas City is probably Sammy Watkins. They won the Super Bowl. Right. Jeremy Maclin was there his rookie year. Maclin had over 1,000 yards, I think, that season. But no, Waddle is the best wide receiver he's ever played with. And you mentioned Gesicki, I think rightfully so. Gesicki is a very good player, and he's motivated this year to have a great year. He's on the franchise tag, so you're trying to get a long-term deal, whether it's in Miami or elsewhere. Look, I think what's going to be fascinating with the Dolphins early is, of course, no one's seen this offense. No one's seen Mike McDaniel as a head coach. It's a lot of uncertainty. Right. And I think that will benefit them early in the year.
I agree.
Now, I'm fascinated to see, do defenses, do they back up and do they play too high, as we saw Kansas City play like that forever? Because everybody said, well, my God, Mahomes and Hill and Watkins and even Hardman's speed. I mean, you wanted to back up. Or the teams say, we're going to choke off everything short and everything underneath, and we're going to make Tua beat us down the field.
That will be early on. They have to do that early on, Matt.
I agree with you.
Because until the line can punch you in the mouth and shove the ball down your throat for 4 yards, and when that happens, then any quarterback will then have a much better passing game. And now you're talking about linebackers going, am I on my heels? Am I on my toes? What am I doing here? And that's when you've got them on the rocker, and that's when you can, get them off kilter. In fact, I asked Teron Armstead that question today about, hey, what assurances do you feel that you're going to finally fix this offensive line? Because it's been a real problem. You know what I mean? And he's a stud. But he's not going to be able to carry the line by himself. And hell, you're a Kansas City fan. 2 years ago, bro, Pat Mahomes needed life insurance almost because they almost killed him in that Super Bowl because he didn't have a line. And that's Pat Mahomes, dude. So until that line wakes up, I think you're right, Matt. They're going to choke. They're going to try to choke him out early on.
I think if you're a defense, you have to think, look, you're not getting free yards at the line of scrimmage. And we're going to make you protect long enough to throw the ball down the field. And we're going to challenge Tua to do it, because throughout his career to this point, it's been a lot of dink and dunk by way of A, the line hasn't been good. B, that's been the way the offense has been structured. Now, and with McDaniel, it's interesting. He comes from the 49ers. The 49ers are very much run first, a lot of play action, a lot of RPOs. They want to get the ball in a playmaker's hands like Kittle or Deebo Samuel and let him run after the catch. And I think teams try the best they can to take that away and force the ball deep down the field. My big thing with the Dolphins early, they've got to make teams respect the fact that with Waddle and Hill, if you're going to do that, we can torch you down the field.
Right.
We're going to hit you for big plays, and then teams will back up. then teams will say, look, look, it's comical watching the Chiefs sometimes. There are teams that will literally put their safeties 25 yards off the line of scrimmage because they'll let the Chiefs walk all the way down the field and then just say, well, we're going to try to stop you in the red zone. And if you're an offense, I think in today's game, that's where you want to be. You want to be in a spot where you just walk down the field and then you execute situational football inside the 20-yard line. And I think for Miami right now, if you can prove that you can hit on those big gainers down the field, teams will back up. But until that happens, teams will say, we're not giving you free 7 yards. Why would we? You're going to have to prove it. And I think that's going to be the crux of their offense early in the year.
I'm with you there. And again, if they get that running game going, and that's a Shanahan thing with McDaniel. Everywhere he's been, that's kind of been. And let me tell you something: the team you root for, like Andy Reid's known as this passing guru, but the running game has always been an enormous part of Philadelphia or the Chiefs' offense. If Andy can run the ball, he's going to run the hell out of the ball too if he can. You know what I mean?
Except in the AFC Championship game when the Bengals are playing a 3-man front and the Chiefs just decide to run the ball like 4 times the entire half, and it cost them a shot at the Super Bowl. But to your point, I will say one thing with Andy Reid's offense is it gets overlooked, and it's not running the ball, but it's an extension of it. No team runs a better or more complex screen game than Kansas City. They will throw, and it could be to the back, it could be to a tight end, it could be to a receiver. The Chiefs run a million different looks where they get guys out in space. And I think that's one of the reasons they drafted Creed Humphrey at center in the second round last year, is he's athletic. Right. And they missed that when Mitch Morse left to go to Buffalo a few years ago. Like that is something.
Hilaire got injured too 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, he got hurt
them too.
McKinnon was in and out of the lineup, and McKinnon, when he was healthy last year, played really well for him, but he was hurt a lot. He ended up actually really being a big piece in the playoffs. But that's why I think you saw them bring in Ronald Jones this year. The point is, that is one thing with that offense. People focus on Hill and Kelsey, and rightfully so. I mean, they are the stars of the show from a target perspective. But if you watch them, they kill teams on 1st and 10 with just getting a free 8 yards. They'll hit Hardman on a slip screen, and he runs for 5 and dives for 3 more. And now it's 2nd and 2. And if you're a defense, it's like, okay, well, are you going to bring up guys to stop the run, or are you just and let Mahomes try to hit you with a deep shot 30 yards down the field in a zone, or are you just going to back up and let him run for 5 yards? And that is where Miami has weapons now to scare the hell out of teams, but they've got to be able to block, and Tua's got to be able to prove that he can make them pay in a way that he hasn't really had an opportunity to make people pay the first couple of years of his career.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say, and I think what's completely changed in that building, you had the front office battling the coach. The coach was embattled sometimes with his own assistant coaches or even players. There was a lot of disconnect. And the one thing that I will give Mike McDaniel credit is he's built bridges with everybody, even the media, everything. And again, none of this means anything until week 4 when you're down by 14 in the fourth quarter, and let's see how you respond. I get all of that, but you don't get there without having at least a start of a good foundation, because you could be in other places where there are maybe holdouts going on, there's bitterness going on, there's a quarterback that might be facing suspensions, whatever. There are different. Hell, we've had those kind of situations here in Miami. We've had the off the field stuff, and I give them credit that McDaniel at least has created an environment that everybody's supportive of each other, and now they're going in, and this is at least that gives you a fighting chance, dude, in a brutal game.
And look, they're going to be tested early. While we're talking, I pulled up the schedule.
Oh yeah, those 4 weeks, bro.
I mean, they're home to New England. Now, they always seem to beat the hell out of New England. It seems they always find a way to beat them. But they play them week 1. That's never easy. I don't care who you are. Belichick will always make those games hard. Then they go to Baltimore, which is a very difficult game. Then they come home and play the Bills in what is somewhat of a measuring stick game early in the year. I think the Bills are as good as anybody, if not better than anybody else in football. That is a team that if you can win that game, even though it's a home game and all that would announce, hey, we're here. We've arrived as a team that can maybe even push for the division. And then you're at the Bengals. I mean, that is I can't speak for Dolphins fans. I got to say, if you come out at 2-2, you should be thrilled. I mean,
can I say something?
Sure, yeah. Your show.
But you said they give New England problems, right? And I think they beat them twice last year, right? I think. Right? Yep. Yeah. Okay. And didn't they come up with the cover 0 on Lamar Jackson that everybody goes, oh shit, we better do that also. They blitzed him like he had never been blitzed before in his life.
Yes.
They basically told them, kid, you're not running today. We're getting after your ass, and you better beat us with your arm, and you better make a quick decision. And they knew that he couldn't do that, right? So you really think about it, if they're better, yeah, it's a really tough 4-game stretch. But if you really have the answer to Lamar Jackson and you kind of give, New England some trouble,
right?
Okay, it's a tough stretch, but those 2 games actually are winnable for them at this point in time.
I think of the 4, they're probably the 2 games that you'd say, well, they're going to win it because look, I know
the Bills, my brother. The Bills are
tough. The Bills the Bills are built in a way that's hard for Miami because Buffalo with all those corners and they're difficult. But the Bengals game could be interesting because they cannot cover the Dolphins. That could be interesting. That could be a horse race up and down.
Oh, Matt, let me ask you: are the Bengals for real? Or is this because I'm old, bro, and I watched Boomer Esiason get to the Super Bowl and then they faded away. I watched Ken Anderson because I'm old in the early '80s get to the Super Bowl and then never do it again. Although I got to give Mike Brown credit, that son of a bitch never spends money, and he bought 3 linemen this year. So that's the one thing that I will give him credit. But there's a part of me that goes, is this the same thing that's happened before, that they make their one run and then it's over again, But the difference is Mike Brown's actually spending now, which is just like weird.
It's funny because he is. And I actually wrote about this recently. In the last 2 years, they've spent over $250 million on free agents. But here's the rub. Only 74 of it's been guaranteed. They do not spend guaranteed money. And so you wonder when like that Jesse Bates thing fell apart because they wouldn't give him guaranteed money. And Jesse Bates was like, are you kidding me? I have $13 million on a tag and you're going to offer me $4 extra million over 5 years?
It's Mike Brown, dude. That's what I'm telling you.
It's so insulting. It's so insulting. It's incredible. And look, you were practicing. You've been in locker room, so have I. Guys look at that and go, well, I'm going to bust my ass and this team's not even going to pay me. They didn't pay Jesse. They're not paying me.
Right.
And that's a problem. Like that's a real thing that happens in locker rooms. But that being said, I do think the Bengals are for real because I think the quarterbacks are real and I think they have great weapons. Do I think they're going back to the Super Bowl this year? No. Do I think they're a playoff team that could win a game or 2? Yeah, I do. I honestly do. Defensively, they were a lot better in the playoffs than people gave them credit for. Now, the concern is in the playoffs, they played Tennessee, who has no offense. And they played the Raiders, who were, a great story in the sense that Carr overcame a whole bunch of awful stuff during the season. But I don't think anybody thought the Raiders were a world beater. The Chiefs game, they were getting pounded in. And then the Chiefs self-destructed in the second half of the game. Not taking away from Cincinnati, but the Chiefs did as much to beat themselves as the Bengals did. My point is, I think they're very good. I wouldn't be shocked if Baltimore won the division. I also wouldn't be shocked if Cincy does. I think it's a 2-horse race. But here's a fun little note for the listeners. There are only 3 quarterbacks in NFL history that have ever lost the first Super Bowl that they started in and gone on to win a Super Bowl throughout the rest of their career. Do you know who they are?
Bob Greasy is one of them.
Yep. He's the hardest one, I think.
Oh, John Elway's the other. How many do we have? How many did you say?
3.
3 that lost their first and then came back to win it.
Yes, as a starter at any point in their careers.
Yeah. Montana won it. Bradshaw won his first.
Think early.
So I'm talking 70s, 60s?
Yep. You got Greasy, you got Elway.
Shit, was it Len Dawson?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because he lost the early one and then won against. Right.
So
yes.
Burrow is fighting up a hill. If you typically lose your first Super Bowl, you don't win the Super Bowl. A lot of those guys never got back. Now, Burrow, I think, look, he's a great player. He's young. He's talented. He's got as good a shot as anybody to get back.
Awesome.
But it's hard. It's hard. And
Marino, bro. Marino.
Right. I mean, if he couldn't get back, right, exactly. Right. I mean, Jim Kelly got 4 bites at that apple and couldn't do it. Like Warren Moon never got to an AFC championship game. Like
and he's so awesome. Freaking awesome, dude. Warren Moon was so fantastic, man.
Unbelievable.
What a great quarterback.
And never got to a conference title game. Like so while I think the Bengals are for real, it is hard. And you look at that conference, Buffalo's terrific. I still think Kansas City's excellent. You have Indianapolis, who's better, Baltimore, who's very good. You have Miami, who's much improved. You have all these teams. The Broncos got Russell Wilson. The Chargers are really talented. Like the Bengals could be excellent this year and not win a playoff game. And so I think they're good. I do think they'll be in the playoffs, by the way. But I think, history says it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Yeah. It really will be.
Yeah, it's really, and I was just talking to somebody in the building today. It's just about just surviving the next couple of weeks to get to the season. Yes. That's the other thing that they're like, that's what football people tell you, man. We just want to get through this, right? We just want to get through this in one piece, so we got a chance. Because the most deflating thing for a team, for fans, whatever, is when you suffer an injury early on that it's an injury you cannot recover from. It doesn't matter, bro. You're done. And it just takes away from the team, and it takes away a lot. And I think that's what every football fan is doing right now, is crossing their fingers for the next couple of weeks that their favorite team doesn't suffer that huge setback.
I say this every year on every show I go on. I write it. If you care about your team's preseason record, you're insane. The only thing I know, obviously, you got a lot of Miami people listening. The Dolphins could lose 3 games by a combined score of 300-0. And if nobody gets hurt, they won. That's like every day I always look at Twitter and I'm watching these camps. I'm talking to people in the league, and he's just hoping that nobody big goes down. I remember last year when the Ravens on back-to-back plays in practice had Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters both tear ACLs. I know it sounds bizarre to say this. Their season was done. Like their season between those guys and J.K. Dobbins in the preseason is done. It was done. Yeah. The team, like, you're not recovering from your top corner going down. And them, look, normally you'd say, well, a running back, but with them, it's so important. I mean, it's so critical for them.
It's not only that, you lost your 1, your 2, your number 3 running back. That's the thing. You were playing your 5th and 6th and 7th backs as the year went on. I mean, how good can you be at that point?
It's so hard to overcome that stuff. Look, and I look at the AFC this year, maybe more than any other year. This season is going to come down to who's healthy at the right time. What team maybe has some injuries mid-season, okay, but by December, by January, they're healthy and they're right. I remember the year the Bucs won the Super Bowl. The Bucs had injuries throughout the year, but they got right. They got healthy. And the Chiefs are the polar opposite. Chiefs are healthy all year long and then got hurt at the end of the season. And that's the way it goes. And I think, I think the Bills are the best team in the AFC. By what margin? I mean, a half an inch. I mean, there's so many teams that are so good that you look at them and go, look, it's going to come down to, are you right physically in January? If you are, you got a great shot. And if you're not, you're probably going home.
I'm with you there. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. And by the way, great nugget. I did not realize that the Bengals, out of all that money, only 75 of it was guaranteed. So that's not really a lot of money there. So that's really good nugget. They
don't put money in escrow. I talked to one agent a month ago. I wrote a piece based off Deshaun Watson's contract. I said, look, if you were an agent for Joe Burrow or for Justin, if you were an agent for Burrow or Herbert, which none of these 3 guys were that I spoke to, I said, what would you ask for in a negotiation after the season, assuming they just have the years you'd expect them to have? And each agent individually said $55 million a year, and a couple of them said fully guaranteed. And I talked to one agent who's a veteran agent who's been in the league for a long time, big name agent, who said, knowing the Bengals, I think they're going to have to take a bank loan out to pay Burrow, because when they have to put the money in escrow, when you sign a contract and the guaranteed money's got to go into escrow, he's like, they're not going to have that cash on hand. They might have to take a business loan out from a bank at a low interest rate, and that might be the way they have to pay him.
Ooh.
So I mean, you're not talking about franchises here who just have billions and billions and billions. Keep in mind with both the Bengals and the Chargers, those are hand-me-down franchises. Those are inheritances. That's a big difference in what the Broncos just did with Walton buying in from Walmart. Okay,
Right.
Jerry Jones was a tycoon when he bought the Cowboys. Mike Brown is not a tycoon. God knows he's rich, but Paul Brown wasn't crazy rich, right? I mean,
Right.
Paul Brown started the
The
Cleveland
hell, you'd
Browns.
figure after all these years of not spending, you should have saved up a shitload of money. God,
But I mean,
God.
they're not. Yeah,
That
I
leaves
think
print
sometimes.
money, bro.
Right.
And they have a good fan base that still goes to those games,
Yep.
dude.
You would think, but I think sometimes people don't realize. And look, hell, until I covered the league, I didn't realize that the guaranteed money has to go in escrow. And these, like the Chargers, and I had the exact figure in my column from a few weeks ago. Their relocation fee was something like $450 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Spanos family is one of the more cash poor ownership groups in the league anyway. And they don't even own the stadium they play in. Kroenke does. Like that's a problem when Justin Herbert goes, you know what, I'd like 275 fully guaranteed. Like, okay, well, we're having a lawsuit right now within the family, and we're paying the league to relocate. And SoFi, we're basically a renting tenant. It's a problem. That's a hell of a lot harder for them than
The problem is those are legacy owners
yes.
that have been in it for so long that they can't, like, all the new owners that come in, they're all
Crazy rich.
like in baseball. You knew Loria was broke and the whole Montreal mess. And so then you end up giving him Miami and you had to loan him 39 million in order for him to complete. Well, if you have to loan somebody the money, then they don't belong in your club. You know what I mean? And baseball has done a poor job of that sometimes with some of their owners that they've brought in. Football has not. Football has brought in strong owners, but the problem is those guys there, we're talking about people that have been in it for decades now, and what are you going to do with them at this point? And they're just not a free spending team. And let me tell you, that's a great point you bring up, because they have, I mean, what are they going to do? They cannot allow Joe Burrow to walk out.
They have, I mean, hey, if you've noticed, and it was in the news very quietly in the last week, they're selling the stadium naming rights in Cincinnati. It's no longer going to be Paul Brown Stadium. They need the money. I mean, they are looking under every couch cushion right now on earth to try to get this money. They know it's coming. And, look, his father's name's on that stadium. Like, it's coming off the stadium because they need the money. And
well, you know what? They should do what I've said they should do here for years, because Joe Robbie, same thing, not a rich family.
Right.
And he went out and built a stadium on his own. Yep. And because he did that, he went broke. And then the family ended up losing the team because there was a squabble and all that. It was ugly and all. And then Huizinga ended up picking it up. You know what I'm saying? And you see things like that happen. And it's just kind of a shame, man, that you have these kind of situations, and then the fans are the ones that kind of suffer from it because of the limitations that they have sometimes as a family. And look what ends up going on. And, and now obviously Dolphins are lucky because they've had some pretty good owners that have spent. They haven't gotten it right, but
they're willing to spend the money.
Bless Huizinga, dude. I mean, his baseball team won the World Series. His hockey team got to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
He just, and the one he loved the most, the Dolphins, he couldn't get it right. But it wasn't a lack of trying, because he brought Saban, he brought Parcells, he brought Jimmy. He tried, dude. He tried. And that's the thing with Paul Brown. Is he, does he have it to be able to? Okay, so if he has to give Joe Burrow that money, how does he hang on to the rest of because you know how it cripples every other team that's rich. How about a team that isn't rich?
That's going to be the fascinating question, is what happens with T. Higgins? What happens with Logan Wilson? Obviously, I think Jesse Bates, we see what's happening there. Like, that is, right. And look, again, the bottom line is, in the NFL now, I mean, you know it as well as I do, in the 90s even, like not that long ago, you saw the franchise in the 90s, okay? That price tag was something with $1 million, not $1 billion. Yes. And it was a low million. Like, it was, I mean, look, when I say affordable, I'm not buying an NFL franchise in the 90s. But, like, by rich people's say, like, you could, a couple $100 million, you buy a franchise.
Right.
Now, you're laying out $4+ billion. Like whoever buys a team now is so rich, it's insane.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about it. But these teams now, some of them, the Maras, the Rooneys, the Hunts, they've been able to amass fortunes. And part of that, and the Hunt family was well off well before they got into football. Yeah. But the Rooneys, they put
and they were always a great football family.
Yes.
Remember, they started an entire league.
Yes.
So, Lamar's man.
Even though the Bears are owned by the McCaskies, I mean, that's the Hallis family. Like that family has gone on. Mike Brown, he's the son of Paul Brown, Paul Brown might be the most influential figure ever in NFL history. Really, probably. I don't know, it's just arguable. But Paul Brown wasn't swimming in hundreds of millions of dollars. Nope. He just was not. They are certainly by you and our standards, they're incredibly wealthy, but by NFL standards,
right.
They're sleeping in steerage. Like, let's just be real, they are. So it's going to be very interesting to follow how they go about. I mean, do they go to war with these quarterbacks trying to save $10? And they might. They very well might.
Yeah, we have Stephen Ross and Mickey Arison in town. I mean, are you kidding me, dude? Jorge Mas owns the soccer team. I mean, We've got some deep-ass pocketed owners here. I actually was talking about this. We have the most competitive group of owners outside of the Marlins right now that we've ever had in our town because, years ago, it was Huizenga owning all the teams. So that's different. But right now, I don't think we've ever had a better group of owners right now here in South Florida. We got for 4 out of the 5 teams because Sherman still hasn't proven anything in baseball. But what are you going to do? All right, tell them about Stacking the Box. And so they can check you out also at Fansided.
Every Monday morning, Stacking the Box, 6 Eastern, column comes out, covers the whole league. Check it out. I'm on vacation for the next few weeks, but that column is going up every week. That doesn't take a vacation. And then Tuesdays at noon Eastern, 11 Central, Stacking the Box podcast, which also covers the whole league and is on YouTube as well. It streams. You can also hear it wherever you hear your podcast. You can download it at iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, you name it. You can find it. And so for the next couple of weeks, that is it. As I am currently in New York, relaxing, and when I come back, I won't take a vacation day for about 10 months. So getting the time in while I can.
Where are you in New York?
I am about 90 miles north of Manhattan. I'm in the Catskill Mountains. So
nice. All right.
Going back to where I grew up.
In New York, sitting on the curb, drinking some coffee.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. All right, Matt. We will catch up next week, my brother. I appreciate you as always, man. You be good.
You too. Take care.
You got it. You are now stepping out of the huddle.
This is the Big O Show.